The quantum field rippled silently as observer First Light adjusted their crystalline form, floating effortlessly above the surface of yet another developing world. Their prismatic body caught the light of 3 suns, bending it around their form until they vanished completely from the visible spectrum. A gentle pulse of satisfaction radiated through their crystalline matrix. Even after thousands of years, the perfection of their invisibility brought joy. Far below, 6-legged creatures were learning to build their first cities, carefully stacking stones in geometric patterns that echoed the crystalline nature of their observers. First Light recorded every detail with meticulous precision, their quantum sensors capturing each milestone in this species' evolution. The development of tools, the first written symbols, the emergence of primitive art, all carefully cataloged and stored in the vast archives of observation. Another species progressing along expected parameters. First Light transmitted to the nearby observation cluster. Their thoughts rippled through subspace, invisible to even the most advanced detection systems of the younger races. The response came from Second Prism, their longtime research partner. Indeed, they follow the standard technological progression we have documented across 8,423 civilizations. The luminary had watched the galaxy bloom with life for over 50,000 years. Their perfect invisibility allowed them to study every species, every civilization, every triumph and failure without ever being detected. Some of their kind had observed the same family lines for hundreds of generations, watching as primitive tools became sophisticated machines, as cave paintings evolved into holographic art. First Light shifted their position, their crystalline body automatically adjusting to maintain perfect camouflage as they descended closer to study a particularly interesting architectural development. The 6-legged beings had begun incorporating spiral patterns into their buildings, an important milestone that often preceded the discovery of mathematical constants. A sudden alert rippled through the observation network. Another luminary ship had arrived in the system. This was unusual. Observation posts rarely received unscheduled visitors. The new arrival took form beside First Light, their crystalline structure identifying them as High Observer Crystal Song, a senior member of the Council of Watchers. "Your presence honors us," First Light transmitted, their thoughts carrying the formal patterns of respect. "How may this observation cluster assist the Council?" Crystal Song's response carried an unusual harmonic, one that First Light had never encountered in their 1,000 years of service. "We bring news from the Sol System observation posts. There has been an anomaly." The word anomaly sent a discordant ripple through the entire observation cluster. In 50,000 years of watching, true anomalies were exceedingly rare. Most apparent deviations from expected patterns could be explained through careful analysis and application of the grand theory of civilizational development. "What manner of anomaly?" Second Prism inquired, their usually steady thought patterns showing signs of disturbance. Crystal Song's form shifted, displaying the subtle patterns that indicated deep concern. "A species has exhibited signs of detecting our presence, not through technology, not through any means we can yet understand. They simply see us." First Light's crystalline matrix vibrated with disbelief. "Impossible. Our quantum camouflage bends all known forms of energy. No organic sensor could possibly detect." Nevertheless, Crystal Song interrupted, their thoughts carrying the weight of absolute authority. "The humans have begun to notice our observers. The Council requires all senior observation teams to review the data and provide analysis. We must understand how they pierce our veil." As Crystal Song transmitted the observational data, First Light felt their entire understanding of the universe shift. The images showed humans, particularly their young, tracking the movement of invisible observers with their eyes. Artists had begun creating works that depicted crystalline forms with impossible accuracy. Scientists were documenting unexplained light phenomena that perfectly matched luminary observation patterns. First Light turned their sensors back to the 6-legged beings below, their perfect architectural spirals suddenly seeming far less significant. For the first time in their long existence, they felt something entirely new: uncertainty. Somewhere in the Sol system, a species had achieved what thousands of civilizations had failed to do. They had seen the unseeable. The age of perfect observation was ending. The age of... Sakura pressed her small hands against the glass of her bedroom window, eyes fixed on the shimmering air above Tokyo's skyline. The morning sun painted the city in soft golden light, but she was far more interested in the dancing ripples that no one else seemed to notice. "Mama," she called out, never taking her eyes off the fascinating distortion. "The star person is back." Dr. Yuki Tanaka paused in the doorway of her daughter's room, a half-packed lunch forgotten in her hands. This was the 8th time this month her 6-year-old had mentioned the star person. As a quantum physicist, she had learned to pay attention to patterns, even ones that seemed impossible. "Can you tell me what they look like today, little one?" she asked, setting down the lunchbox and pulling out her tablet to record another observation. Sakura tilted her head, tracking something invisible as it moved across the sky. "They're like glass made of starlight. When they move, the air bends around them, like ripples in the koi pond." She pointed to a specific spot above the neighboring building. "See, they're studying the new solar panels." Halfway across the world, observer Prism Shield's crystalline form vibrated with increasing concern. This was the 42nd time the young human had accurately tracked their movements. More disturbing still was the mother's methodical documentation of each incident. The observer shifted their quantum signature, implementing an even more sophisticated camouflage pattern. The child's eyes followed the movement perfectly. "Remarkable," Prism Shield transmitted to the observation post floating above Mount Fuji. "The child's visual acuity appears to be increasing with each encounter. She can now track even minor adjustments in our quantum state." The response from base monitor Echo Weave carried frequencies of deep concern. Similar reports are coming in from stations across the planet. A young artist in Barcelona has begun creating crystal sculptures that match our exact molecular structure. A physics student in Nairobi has submitted a thesis on theoretical quantum light organisms that nearly describes our true nature. Sakura had begun drawing on her tablet now, her small fingers tracing patterns in the air that mirrored Prism Shield's crystalline structure with disturbing accuracy. Dr. Tanaka watched her daughter work, years of scientific training warring with what seemed impossible. "The quantum distortion patterns she's drawing," Dr. Tanaka muttered to herself. "They're mathematically perfect." She pulled up her own research data, comparing her daughter's seemingly random scribbles to the anomalous readings she'd been detecting in her lab's quantum field experiments. Prism Shield initiated an emergency transmission to the council. "The humans are beginning to correlate their observations. The child's mother is a quantum physicist. She's connecting her daughter's perceptions to actual scientific data." The response was immediate. "Maintain your position, but enact no further field tests. A full council meeting is being convened." Below, Sakura had finished her drawing. The tablet screen showed a crystalline form that looked like living light-given structure, its pattern almost exactly matching Prism Shield's current configuration. Dr. Tanaka stared at the drawing, then at the empty air where her daughter insisted the star person floated. "Mama," Sakura said suddenly, her voice carrying that peculiar certainty that children sometimes possess. "They're worried because I can see them, but they don't need to be scared. They're beautiful." Prism Shield's entire form resonated with shock. The child hadn't just detected their presence. She had sensed their emotional state. This went beyond simple visual perception. Dr. Tanaka knelt beside her daughter, tablet still recording. "Why do you think they're here, sweetheart?" Sakura smiled, watching as Prism Shield struggled to maintain their quantum camouflage under the stress of this unprecedented situation. "They want to learn about us, just like you learn about stars in your laboratory. But I think..." She paused, her young face suddenly serious. "I think they're lonely. It must be sad, watching everyone but never being seen." In that moment, Floating unseen above Tokyo, Chrism Shield experienced something that would forever change their understanding of humanity. This child, with her imperfect organic senses and developing mind, had not only pierced their perfect camouflage, she had seen straight into the heart of their civilization's greatest flaw. The Watchers had spent so long hiding that they had forgotten what it meant to be truly seen. The holographic displays in the Luminary Analysis Chamber pulsed with thousands of human artworks, each one revealing another impossible glimpse of their true forms. Observer Mindweaver floated before the central display, their crystalline structure vibrating with increasing fascination as they sorted through centuries of human creativity. These patterns cannot be coincidence, they transmitted to the assembled research team. The display shifted to show cave paintings from 30,000 years ago, crystalline forms watching over human hunters. Next came Renaissance sketches of angels that bore striking similarities to luminary observation formations. Modern digital art showed their exact quantum patterns, labeled as abstract science fiction concepts by their creators. Humans have been seeing us since their earliest days, Second Weaver noted, their thoughts carrying harmonics of wonder. But how? Our quantum camouflage defeats even the most advanced scanning technology of the elder races. The answer came from an unexpected source. In her quantum physics lab at Tokyo University, Dr. Tanaka had made a breakthrough. She stood before her team, pointing to a series of brain scans taken from her daughter and other children who reported seeing light beings. The human visual cortex isn't just processing what exists, she explained, highlighting specific neural patterns. Our brains are constantly filling in gaps, making connections, and interpreting patterns that our conscious minds haven't even registered. We've evolved to see what shouldn't be there. Across the planet, others were reaching similar conclusions. A neuroscience team in Stockholm published findings about human pattern recognition abilities that surpassed any known artificial intelligence. A group of quantum theorists in Buenos Aires proposed that human consciousness itself might operate on quantum principles, allowing for the detection of sophisticated quantum camouflage technologies. In the Luminary Observation Post above the South Pacific, Crystal Seeker reviewed the incoming human research with growing excitement. They're beginning to understand their own gifts, they transmitted to the Council, but they're approaching it purely through scientific methodology. They still don't grasp the full scope. The scope became clearer as the Luminary delved deeper into human perception studies. They discovered that humans didn't see reality as a fixed thing. Their brains were constantly creating it, filling in blanks, questioning inconsistencies, and seeking patterns even in random noise. This flawed and inefficient system of perception had produced something extraordinary, a species that could perceive quantum state changes by simply refusing to accept that something was truly invisible. In an art studio in Paris, a sculptor named Sophie worked through the night, her hands shaping crystalline forms that matched luminary quantum signatures with perfect precision. She had never seen the classified research from Dr. Tanaka's lab, had no knowledge of the theories being developed in Buenos Aires. She simply created what she saw in the quiet moments between thoughts, when her mind was free to perceive what her eyes told her couldn't exist. Their creativity is not separate from their perception, Mindweaver realized, studying Sophie's sculptures. It's an integral part of how they process reality. They see us because they can imagine us, and they can imagine us because, somehow, they truly see us. The implication stunned the Luminary research team. Their own perception was based on pure, objective observation. They saw what was there, nothing more. Humans, with their imperfect senses and pattern-seeking minds, saw what could be there. They perceived possibility itself. A child's drawing in Tokyo, a sculpture in Paris, a research paper in Buenos Aires. All pieces of the same puzzle, assembled by a species that excelled at finding connections in chaos. The Luminary had believed their quantum camouflage made them invisible to all forms of detection, but they had never encountered a species that could perceive things precisely because they weren't there. We must revise our entire understanding of consciousness, Crystal Seeker transmitted to the Council. The humans aren't detecting our quantum signatures through any physical means. They're perceiving us through the gaps in reality itself. The quantum spaces where our camouflage tells the universe we don't exist. They've evolved to see the invisible simply by refusing to accept that anything is truly unseeable. In that moment, the observers began to understand that they had not just discovered a species that could see them. They had discovered a species that was redefining the very nature of perception itself. The crystal conclave shimmered like a constellation brought to Earth. 10,000 luminae gathered in their sacred observation sphere above Saturn's rings. Their crystalline forms created cascading patterns of light that would have stunned any human lucky enough to witness them. Today, for the first time in a millennium, they had dropped their quantum camouflage within the safety of their hidden chamber. High Observer Star Song's form pulsed with ancient authority as they addressed the assembly. For 50,000 years, we have watched the galaxy's civilizations grow, secure in our perfect invisibility. Now, we face an unprecedented choice. The humans not only see us, they understand us in ways we never imagined possible. The chamber resonated with harmonic discussions as thousands of observers shared their experiences simultaneously. 100,000 years of tradition hung in the balance. We cannot maintain the protocol of non-interference, transmitted observer first light, their forms still carrying traces of uncertainty from their encounter in Tokyo. The humans are documenting our presence across too many channels. Their quantum physicists are approaching breakthrough understandings of our technology. Then we must withdraw completely, counter-transmitted elder crystal memory, their ancient form flickering with concern. Abandon the Sol system before they can prove our existence to their wider population. The suggestion sent ripples of discord through the assembly. Countless observers had spent generations studying human development. The thought of abandoning such rich research brought genuine distress to their scientific minds. First light advanced to the center of the chamber, their crystalline structure displaying the recorded images from Earth. Children's drawings of luminary forms floated in the space between stars. Complex quantum equations from human physicists demonstrated understanding that should have been impossible. Art pieces captured their true nature with haunting accuracy. The humans have given us something no other species has in 50,000 years. First light transmitted. They've given us perspective. They see us not as we see ourselves, but as we could be. Young observer Dawn Seeker moved forward, their recently formed crystalline structure bearing the marks of specialized study in human consciousness. Their transmission carried harmonics of excitement that would have been considered inappropriate in the conclave a generation earlier. Consider this paradox, Dawn Seeker began. We achieved perfect invisibility, yet became blind to our own limitations. The humans, with their imperfect senses, see both our presence and our potential. They don't just pierce our quantum camouflage, they perceive possibilities we never imagined. The chamber hummed with increasing intensity as Dawn Seeker displayed their research findings. Human children waving at invisible observers. Artists capturing quantum states in sculpture and paint. Scientists developing theories that nearly matched luminary technology. But most importantly, Dawn Seeker continued, look at how they react to our presence. Not with fear or hostility, but with wonder. They don't see intruders or threats. They see fellow explorers. They've been trying to reach out to us through art and science, hoping we would answer. Star Song's form shifted, displaying the complex patterns that indicated deep contemplation. You suggest we break 50,000 years of protocol, reveal ourselves willingly to a developing species. I suggest, Dawn Seeker responded, their form bright with conviction, that we have found something more valuable than perfect observation. We have found a species that could teach us how to see the universe anew. The chamber erupted in harmonic debate. Some observers argued for tradition, others for change. The discussion reached frequencies that would have shattered lesser materials than their quantum crystalline forms. In the midst of the chaos, First Light shared a private transmission with Dawn Seeker. The humans have a saying, sometimes you must be seen to truly see. Perhaps we have been invisible for too long. As the debate raged on, images from Earth continued to float through the chamber. A child's drawing of crystalline beings dancing among stars, a scientist's equations describing quantum consciousness, a sculptor's vision of light given form. Each piece of human creativity reflected the luminary not as they were, but as they could be. The age of perfect observation was ending. The question that remained was, what would the luminary choose to become in the light of human perception? In a hidden research chamber beneath the ice of Europa, observer Mindweaver and Dawnseeker conducted their most ambitious analysis yet. Holographic displays filled the space with billions of data points collected from human sensory studies, each one adding another piece to an incredible puzzle. "Look at this pattern," Mindweaver transmitted, highlighting a neural scan from Dr. Tanaka's laboratory. When humans encounter something their conscious mind says cannot exist, their neural pathways don't simply reject the information. They create new connections, new ways of understanding. Dawnseeker's crystalline form shifted closer to the display, studying the cascade of synaptic activities. Their brains adapt to impossibility. Instead of filtering out what they cannot explain, they evolve to perceive it. The chamber's walls rippled with new data as first light arrived, their form carrying fresh observations from Earth. The quantum physics team in Nairobi has made another breakthrough. They've developed a theoretical framework that almost perfectly describes our quantum shifting technology, not because they detected it, but because they imagined how it could work. The three observers studied the human research with growing amazement. The scientists hadn't built devices to detect the luminary. Instead, they had learned to trust the inexplicable gaps in their data. They hadn't created technology to pierce quantum camouflage. They had simply accepted that their universe contained more than their instruments could measure. Their perception goes beyond physical senses, Dawnseeker noted, bringing up a series of artistic works. "Look at these paintings from a small studio in Montreal. The artist is blind from birth, yet their fingers have sculpted our exact crystalline patterns in clay. They say they can feel the quantum vibrations in the air." Mindweaver's form pulsed with revelation. "We've been approaching this backward. We thought humans could see through our camouflage because of some special sensory ability. But that's not it at all. They see us because their minds refuse to accept the limitations of their senses." First light activated another display, showing the history of human scientific advancement. Every major breakthrough in their history came from questioning the impossible. They looked at the stars and refused to accept they were unreachable. They studied atoms they couldn't see and learned to split them. They imagined traveling faster than sound, then built machines to do it. Their greatest strength, Dawnseeker transmitted softly, is their willingness to be wrong about what is possible. The chamber filled with new data as more reports flowed in from Earth. A group of children in Brazil had started playing games that mimicked luminary quantum patterns with perfect accuracy. A meditation master in Tibet had written poetry describing the exact harmonic frequencies of luminary thought transmission. A quantum computing team in Singapore had developed algorithms that paralleled luminary computational matrices. "They're not just seeing us," Mindweaver realized. "They're understanding us in ways we never understood ourselves." Look at this analysis from Dr. Tanaka's team. The display showed a complex model of human consciousness, demonstrating how their minds existed partially in quantum space. Their very thoughts operated in the same realm where the luminary hid themselves. What the luminary had thought was perfect camouflage was actually placing them precisely where human consciousness could perceive them. All this time, First light transmitted, their form bright with understanding. We thought our quantum shifting made us invisible. Instead, it tuned us to the exact frequency of human awareness. Dawnseeker brought up the latest neural scans from their human studies. Their brains are changing with each encounter. New neural pathways, new quantum-sensitive regions activating. They're not just detecting us anymore. They're evolving to understand us completely. The three observers shared a moment of profound silence, their crystalline forms resonating with the weight of their discovery. Humanity wasn't merely a species that could pierce their camouflage. They were a species whose very nature defied the concept of impossibility. We need to take these findings to the Council, Mindweaver decided. The humans aren't just ready for contact. They've been preparing for it their entire existence. Every time they looked at the stars and imagined they weren't alone, every time they questioned what their eyes told them was impossible, they were growing closer to this moment. The observers knew that their revelation would change both civilizations forever. The question was no longer whether humanity was ready to see them. The question was whether the luminary were ready to be truly seen. Snow fell softly around the Amundsen Scott Research Station in Antarctica, the crystalline flakes catching starlight in ways that seemed to mirror the forms slowly materializing above the facility. First Light led the delegation of 7 luminary observers, their quantum signatures gradually shifting from perfect camouflage to visible spectrum. Inside the station's main research chamber, Dr. Tanaka held her daughter Sakura's hand, watching as the air itself began to crystallize with impossible beauty. Around them stood a carefully chosen group: quantum physicists, artists, children who had seen the truth, and researchers who had dared to believe the impossible. "They're so bright," Sakura whispered, squeezing her mother's hand. The 6-year-old showed no fear, only wonder, as beings made of living light took form before them. First Light's crystalline structure caught the room's illumination, refracting it into patterns that transformed the scientific facility into a cathedral of light. Their first transmission came not in words, but in pure thought, carefully modulated to human neural frequencies as discovered through Dawn Seeker's research. "We see you," First Light projected, "as you have seen us." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her years of quantum research culminating in this moment. "We welcome you," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Though perhaps welcome back would be more accurate. You've been watching us for quite some time." The luminary observers shifted their forms, and what the humans would later learn was their expression of appreciation for unexpected insight. The patterns of light within their crystalline bodies created cascading harmonies that the human observers perceived in uniquely individual ways. Sophie, the sculptor from Paris, reached for her sketchpad with trembling hands. "The quantum resonance patterns," she breathed, "they're exactly like the pieces I've been creating." But seeing them in motion, her pencil flew across the paper, capturing movements that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states. Young Dawn Seeker moved forward, their forms still carrying traces of excitement that would have been considered unseemly in traditional luminary society. They projected a series of images, children's drawings, scientific papers, artistic works, all showing how humans had perceived the luminary through the ages. "You saw us," Dawn Seeker transmitted, "not despite your limitations, but because of them. Your minds seek patterns in chaos, find meaning in emptiness, and imagine possibilities beyond the observable. You have given us a gift we never knew we needed." Professor Chen from the Singapore quantum computing team stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying his latest algorithms. "And you've given us confirmation of theories we hardly dared to believe. Your quantum shifting technology. It operates on principles we've only begun to grasp." First Light's form brightened as they projected their response. "We come not as teachers, but as fellow students. Your species perceives reality in ways we never imagined possible. Already, your understanding of quantum mechanics is evolving in directions our civilization never explored." The chamber filled with soft light as the luminary demonstrated their true nature, shifting through quantum states the human eyes perceived as dancing crystals of living starlight. Children in the room began to laugh in delight, their young minds accepting the impossible with natural grace. Dr. Tanaka watched as her daughter walked up to First Light, reaching out to where the crystalline form met the air. "You don't have to hide anymore," Sakura said simply. "Being invisible is lonely." The truth of the child's words resonated through both species. The luminary had achieved perfect observation at the cost of perfect isolation. Humanity, with all its imperfections and limitations, had shown them a different path. "We offer an exchange. First light projected, their form creating patterns that reflected off the Antarctic ice in ways that defied physical laws. Our knowledge of the cosmos, freely shared, in return for your perspective on it. We have watched the universe for 50,000 years. You have shown us how to see it anew in less than 50. As the snow fell outside and starlight danced through crystalline forms within, two civilizations began to truly see each other for the first time. The observers had finally learned that the greatest discoveries come not from watching life, but from living it. The Singapore Quantum Research Center hummed with activity as human and luminary scientists worked side by side. Holographic displays filled the air with mathematical equations that bridged the gap between two civilizations' understanding of the universe. Professor Chen stood before a quantum visualization chamber, his expression bright with wonder as Dawn Seeker demonstrated a previously unknown state of matter. The quantum field doesn't just bend around your forms, he observed, watching the crystalline patterns shift. It becomes part of you. You exist in multiple states simultaneously. Dawn Seeker's form rippled with appreciation. And your minds perceive all those states at once, something we never thought possible without our level of quantum integration. Across the globe, similar collaborations were yielding extraordinary results. In Dr. Tanaka's Tokyo laboratory, Sakura sat cross-legged on the floor, teaching young luminary observers about human imagination. Her drawings had evolved from simple sketches to complex quantum state maps that even the oldest luminary found insightful. When I dream, she explained to her crystalline audience, I can see all the places you could be at once. It's like watching light dance through a prism, but the prism is everywhere. First light, observing the exchange, transmitted to Mindweaver. The child explains quantum superposition more clearly than our most advanced theoretical models. In Paris, Sophie had transformed her art studio into a quantum visualization center. Her sculptures now incorporated luminary crystalline patterns that responded to thought frequencies, creating art that existed simultaneously in physical and quantum space. Viewers reported experiencing multiple realities simultaneously, each piece telling a different story depending on the observer's quantum state. Art should transform how we see the world, Sophie explained to a group of fascinated luminary observers. Now we can create pieces that transform reality itself. The breakthroughs came in waves. Human quantum computers, enhanced by luminary insights, began processing information in ways that defied classical physics. Luminary observation techniques, refined by human intuition, discovered new forms of life existing in quantum states they had previously overlooked. In the Antarctic Research Station, Dr. Tanaka led a team developing what they called the Bridge Protocol, a method of communication that combined luminary quantum transmission with human neural patterns. The result was a form of connection that transcended both species' limitations. We're not just translating between our forms of communication, she explained to the project leaders. We're creating an entirely new language, one that exists in the space between quantum states. The Luminary Council, once so hesitant about contact, found themselves transformed by human perspective. Star Song, addressing a joint session of human and luminary scientists, admitted, "We achieved technological perfection, but lost the ability to imagine new possibilities. You have shown us that true wisdom comes from embracing uncertainty." Yet it was the children who led the most profound breakthroughs. Their young minds, unburdened by preconceptions about what was impossible, developed new ways of perceiving quantum states that astounded both species. They invented games that naturally mimicked quantum principles, created art that captured multiple realities simultaneously, and asked questions that challenged 50,000 years of luminary understanding. In a quiet moment between experiments, First Light shared a thought with Dr. Tanaka. "We spent millennia perfecting our ability to observe without being seen. Your species taught us the joy of being part of what we observe." The Quantum Research Center's displays showed the latest project, a ship designed to traverse not just space, but the quantum realm itself. Built from a fusion of human intuition and luminary technology, It would allow both species to explore the universe in ways neither could have imagined alone. We're not just combining our technologies, Professor Chen noted, studying the ship's quantum drive specifications. We're combining ways of seeing reality, your precision, and our creativity, your experience, and our imagination. Dawnseeker, their form bright with excitement, added, the ship's sensors will perceive reality through both human and luminary understanding. It will see the universe as neither of us could alone. As the project teams worked, a child's drawing hung on the laboratory wall, a simple sketch showing crystalline beings and humans exploring the stars together. Below it, in careful handwriting, Sakura had written, "Sometimes you have to believe in impossible things to make them possible." The age of separation was over. The age of shared discovery had begun. The quantum exploration vessel Stellar Bridge hung in space above Earth, its crystalline hull shimmering with possibilities as it prepared for its maiden voyage. The ship represented something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of human imagination and luminary technology, designed to explore not just space, but the quantum realms that lay between realities. On the observation deck, Dr. Tanaka stood with first light, watching Earth rotate below them. After 2 years of collaboration, the barriers between their species had faded like morning mist. The quantum communication protocols they'd developed allowed them to share thoughts and perceptions as naturally as breathing. "Did you ever imagine this?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her hand resting on the crystalline viewing panel. "When you were watching us from hiding, did you think we'd be standing here together?" First Light's form rippled with what humans had learned to recognize as gentle amusement. In 50,000 years of observation, we never once imagined being truly seen. Your daughter changed everything with a single glance. In the ship's quantum core chamber, 12-year-old Sakura worked with Dawnseeker, their forms moving in perfect synchronization as they calibrated the vessel's quantum sensors. Her mind had developed an extraordinary ability to perceive quantum states, making her the perfect bridge between human intuition and luminary precision. "There's something out there," Sakura said, her fingers tracing patterns in the quantum field that surrounded them. "In the spaces between spaces, I can feel it calling." Professor Chen's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Final calibrations are complete. The quantum drive is responding to both human and luminary neural patterns. We're ready for the first test jump." The bridge crew represented the best of both civilizations. Sophie's quantum state sculptures lined the walls, their crystalline forms helping to stabilize the ship's reality matrix. Luminary observers who had once hidden from humanity now worked openly with human scientists, each bringing their unique perspective to the mission. "All stations report ready," Mindweaver transmitted from their position at the quantum navigation console. "The ship's sensors are perceiving through both human and luminary protocols simultaneously." Starsong, who had once argued against contact with humanity, now stood proudly as the mission's coordinator. "Initiate quantum transition sequence. Let us see what wonders we can discover together." The Stellar Bridge's quantum drive hummed to life, responding to the combined consciousness of its crew. The ship didn't just move through space, it shifted through quantum states, perceiving and exploring realities that neither species could have accessed alone. As they made their first jump, something extraordinary happened. The ship's sensors, combining human intuition with luminary precision, detected something in the quantum void, signs of life existing in states that even the luminary had never imagined possible. "There are others," Sakura whispered, her eyes wide as she interpreted the quantum readings, "living in the spaces we couldn't see before. They've been there all along, waiting for someone who could perceive them." First Light's form brightened with revelation. "We thought we had achieved perfect observation, yet we were blind to entire realms of existence. Your species taught us that true sight comes not from perfect perception, but from perfect openness to possibility." The ship's quantum sensors revealed civilizations existing in parallel quantum states, life forms that defied conventional physics, and wonders that could only be perceived by combining human and luminary ways of seeing. Each discovery confirmed what both species had begun to understand. The universe was far more magnificent than either of them had imagined alone. "We're receiving transmissions," Dawn Seeker announced, their form pulsing with excitement. "The quantum beings, they're reaching out to us. They say they've been waiting for someone who could see them." Dr. Tanaka smiled at first light, understanding flowing between them through their quantum link. Perhaps that's what all of this was about. Not just humans learning to see the luminary, or the luminary learning to be seen, but all of us learning to see the true wonder of existence. First Light completed the thought. Together. As the stellar bridge prepared to make contact with these new quantum civilizations, Sakura's childhood drawing still hung in the bridge's quantum laboratory. Crystalline beings and humans exploring the stars together. Below it, she had added new words. "The universe is never empty when you know how to look for wonder." The age of separation was truly over. The age of shared discovery had only just begun.